This is the patch drill, which is simply a target filled with 1-inch squares / patches that try to remind you of the building blocks of shooting as you progress through the drill. This is one round on each patch, and each patch must be struck before moving on to the next patch. The premise here is that as you go down the columns, you'll be putting conscious thought into that specific building block of shooting. We want to center those rounds on the patch as much as possible and observe the relationship between where that round is landed on target and what our sights and feeling behind the gun said to get it there. If we notice that one particular building block is giving us issues, or we lack an understanding on the relationship between that building block and the results, or have been unable to find consistency in the results, this drill can be used to experiment with each particular building block until we can get that round on the patch. It should be noted that if you're running optics, you will have to deal with some offset at this close range. You might also be wondering why we're doing this so close and testing accuracy at 3 meters. Well, training accuracy at extremely close range offers many benefits to the shooter. Number one, we get immediate feedback from the target and can form a connection between what we just did on the gun and what it looked like on the target directly in front of us. We can then use this positive or negative feedback to maintain or adjust our technique to ensure that the rounds are meeting our intended point of impact. And number two, my favorite reason, is that we don't have any excuses. At 2 or 3 meters from the target, we can be almost entirely sure that the firearm or ammunition isn't going to be the reason that we're missing the target. This means we are deleting as many variables as possible and simply focusing on the skill set of the shooter themselves. These are the reasons why our patch drill and metrics tests are run at such close range. It is also important to note that these targets are purposefully difficult, scaled down targets to ensure that we're still maintaining a high level of precision even at close range. Remember, the targets are going to get bigger when we're moving backwards to 7 to 10 meters and then 25 meters. It is simply a mind game. If you can stack your rounds on top of each other up close, it's the same shooting principles further back. Now, it should be noted that when we do get to those longer range or extreme long ranges, such as 100 meters or more with a pistol, there are other factors that come into play, such as focal depth and bullet drop. However, the same shooting principles apply. The distance, however, will often cause us to lose confidence in our ability to make those shots, as our eyes are now seeing a blur down range instead of a target, and we aren't getting immediate feedback. Now, what about the scenario where a shooter is accurate at close range, but when shooting at distant targets, they struggle? I think in that scenario, it is because the close range targets they are using are not demanding the level of focus and precision like the distance targets are. That's why the patch drill and metrics tests are shrunk down significantly. If a shooter was at the same close range, but instead was shooting a hostage target, tuxedo IPSC target, or even a 1-inch patch in slow practice, they will likely see that same stress shows up like they would be shooting at long range. This is why the extreme close range is great, because a shooter can induce that level of focus and stress similar to long range shooting, but with the added benefit of immediate results and no excuse that their optic/sights weren't zeroed correctly or that their ammo wasn't good enough. This perceived difficulty of the shot isn't always due to distance, but normally the most difficult targets we run into are simply because of the distance, not the target themselves. We rarely see a shot at close range that we have to seriously pause for and ensure we get the hit. That's likely why distance is usually synonymous with difficulty in our minds. We can reverse that stress and fear of distance by training at higher difficulty targets at close range. That way, no matter the distance, we're simply identifying a target as easy or hard based on the difficulty of the shot, and not letting the distance be the deciding factor for that. Other than putting a lot more time into training at long range and seeing that it is just another difficult shot, increasing our training target's difficulty is a good way to normalize that stress and stop the distance itself from playing mind games on us. We then focus on the process of accuracy, which is simply this: maintain an intense focus on your sight picture, whether that is with target focus or sight focus, optics or irons. We maintain that intense focus through the trigger press and ensure that you are entirely focusing on getting that 1 millisecond right. In that millisecond, your sight picture being simultaneously paired with your trigger brake is the only thing that matters. Now, how you accomplish that and ensure that your sights aren't moving off the target is the difficult thing about shooting. As you can see, as I progressed through the patch drill, there wasn't a lot of change in how I was presenting the gun, gripping the gun, or pressing the trigger. This is because most of the work of the patch drill is in the mind, where you are focusing on each building block and ensuring you're getting them right. If the round is consistently going into the center of the patch, you can reinforce that this technique is working for you and continue on. If the round is not consistently going into the center of the patch, you first have to determine if this is a one-off mistake that you could diagnose and feel and fix immediately, or if this is a long-term issue that you need to address and repair in your dry fire. Remember, most of the issues we face in live fire are solved via changing our dry fire techniques and then returning to experiment at the range. Those consistent issues on the target, however, is when you will see a conscious effort then being placed into what went wrong and changes being made in the structure, grip, or sight alignment of the gun, or primarily your vision and absolute commitment to maintaining your vision/sight picture through the trigger break. Once you find something that may work, you need to then put the effort in during dry fire to fix it.
On the grip column, I'm really focusing on getting that first and final grip and ensuring that it maintains all the way through the column and that I'm not milking my grip.
Also, remember that the context behind every shooter's results is really only known by them. They are the only ones that know exactly where their vision was, where it went to on the trigger break, how their gun felt in their hands, how their grip shifted, and where their headspace and ability to focus is on this day. This is the reason why you'll see us talk about shooters' corrections charts later in this course and why your issues may not be solved by other person's solutions. Your grip, body, gun, eyes, and everything is different, which is why sometimes problem-solving inconsistent accuracy can be difficult and why looking at others' targets without knowing their context can be detrimental to you. There are many good tips out there, but you have to test and experiment for yourself to get the rounds on target because this is an individual sport and your target is individual to you. For instance, you could see my left-hand shooting was very inconsistent. This column requires absolute focus and effort to ensure that I am maintaining my stack of building blocks, and because I am in my head checking all the boxes, it slows down the shots on target. This column is super difficult for me these days. I want to ensure that I'm doing everything right on my weak side to ensure I'm practicing the right things and instilling an unconscious competence down the road. However, if I were to provide more context, it may illuminate the problem that I'm trying to solve. When this video was shot, I was recovering from a dislocated left index finger that set me back significantly in my weak-handed shooting. My trigger press feels different than I was used to, and I lost a ton of confidence in being able to call my shots with my weak-hand shooting. By checking all the mental boxes in my grip, the structure behind the gun, the target focus, I'm constantly ensuring that all the physical parts of the equation are being accounted for. Then if I watch in slow motion, I can see, however, that the physical parts of that equation aren't the issue. I now have an extreme anticipation on my weak side as a result of a lack of confidence and a huge ego hit, where I'm constantly battling with my prior abilities to hit the target weak-handed and where I currently am. This is why it takes so much focus for me in this column and why just a tiny lapse of focus can cause these rounds to go haywire. This is entirely a mind game for myself and the reason why I have to solve this on my own to ensure I retrain my brain to trust my weak-handed shooting and hold the sights on target during the trigger press no matter how foreign or scary it feels. This is why the patch drill is your target and not a competition with someone else. You know your context, and once you have the knowledge of the potential fixes, you just have to input the effort into making it all come together.